Greetings programs and welcome to another non-wargaming game video. I have a little bit of a backlog of titles I have been meaning to cover to look at on the channel. Some of them going back a little ways, way too long in fact, so I've decided to just try and tackle them all in one go. So following on from Railway Empire, which was a fairly recently acquired game, I am next going to take a look at this, Academia School Simulator. And if the background visuals of this main menu look at all familiar to you, then you may guess that this is a similar style game to Prison Architect, and you would in fact be entirely correct. Now, with the Railway Empire game, I was fairly confident in what I was saying, because I've played a lot of very similar games in the past, and it really wasn't trying to do that much different or new. This, I have to say, is exactly the same, and in fact even more so, because although I keep wanting to call it Railway Empire did make certain changes. It streamlined certain things, and it was obviously a very nice visual upgrade to something like Transport Tycoon, which came out over 20 years ago. This, on the other hand, it's very clearly positioning itself in that same genre as Prison Architect. It's an incredibly similar visual style, and the gameplay is incredibly similar as well. It doesn't really do anything different apart from the setting, obviously being that of a school. Now, this is still in the tutorial phase, where it's giving me basically a list of tasks and providing me with grant money for completing those tasks. So we'll pick one of these. Let's go for that one, which will involve researching something from the tech tree. And apparently we don't have anything going at the moment, so we can jump right into that. Vice principals, there we go. Now, we're losing money rather heavily though. I probably hired a bit too many expensive staff. I think principally the teachers, if we take a look at that. Yeah, that's like a quarter of my staff costs right there. You can actually get various grades of, like, particularly the teaching staff in terms of their skill. I may have overdone it a bit. Because at its heart, like Prison Architect, it's a game about balancing the books as you go. But yeah, aside from the setting, it doesn't really do anything different. And if nothing else, this video will be a rather less rambly, long experience than the previous one. It was not my finest work, but I don't know, that's where my head is at the moment. Concise is hard enough for me at the best of times, but this one I can be a bit more concise about, because it's basically school-themed Prison Architect, and I really wish I could say it did something new or different or interesting, but it doesn't. Now, for what it is, a reskinned Prison Architect, it basically does alright. I've not really had any issues with it so far in terms of glaringly obvious omissions or like gameplay issues or anything like that. I mean, just like Prison Architect, you've got your primary purpose, which is to run a school. So for that you need students and you need various support staff, and then for the support staff and the students you need various other facilities, and then later on you can start to, where are we, zones, build things up a bit, because at the moment it's basically just some classrooms, a common area, canteens, and lounges, offices, and toilets. So there's not a lot beyond that. It's a pretty basic school. But later on you can get where are we, special rooms, I think, various different specialized teaching rooms, and was there some other category I was looking at before? No, I don't think so. So yeah, it's basically, it's Prison Architects. I don't know what to say. I really wish I could say that it's something more or different, but it's not really. Yeah. So this is still an early access game. I should point that out, but it's fairly polished for an early access game. I mean, kind of basically working from an existing blueprint. And it's not like Prison Architect itself is a hugely original game. You can trace games like that back to the likes of, Theme Hospital and possibly other games before that. Even when was Theme Hospital out? That was like 1997. So yeah, it's not a new genre at all, but just given that they have basically structured the game in the same way as Prison Architect, given the graphical style is a complete copy of Prison Architect. Yeah. So if you really, really liked Prison Architect and you wanted to build a school instead of a prison, then hey, have I got a game for you. But if you have played your fill of Prison Architect, I can't really recommend it. It doesn't do anything that's different, especially. Now, personally, I think they've missed a trick here, the team behind this. I even forget what the developers are called now. I did look this up, but if instead of a school, it had been, say, build a university, then, you know, a lot of the actual structure of the game would still be the same, potentially. Build your classrooms, hire your staff, build your facilities. But it would give you a lot more opportunity in terms of specialization. In fact, even in the context of, you know, what's clearly supposed to be like a high school, you would have more potential room for specialization if the game kind of was going in that direction. But instead of, you know, as a university setting up like research departments and specializing in certain things, instead you've got just a kind of generic high school, and you can't even make it into, you know, like a sports academy or a science academy or, you know, some fancy highfalutin private school versus a public school. You know, could give different modes of funding and have different sets of challenges. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's still in a phase of development where stuff like this might be added later down the line, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, it doesn't really do anything for me. And I think because I've played so much of Prison Architect, and because there isn't, that I can see anything particularly new here, it's just a bit disappointing, really. So if you've never played Prison Architect, but you like the idea of the game and you don't particularly want to be dealing with, you know, a prison and prison riots and having to search cells for drugs and people trying to escape and whatever, then, you know, there's this. Although I'm sure you could, you know, you could take some of the things from Prison Architect and put them in here, and it might be quite amusing, like staff carrying tasers and guard towers and things. I don't know. But yeah, it's just kind of disappointingly unadventurous. It's not badly made, it's just unadventurous. So I did say this was going to be quicker than my half-hour ramble. In fact, I think it was over half hour. So yeah, I think there isn't really much more for me to say about this. It is what it is. It might add some interesting things later on, so you can always go and add it to your watch list on Steam. But as an actual game to buy, Prison Architects just has, you know, a lot more content, and this just doesn't do anything new. So I would really say go buy that instead, and you'll probably have more fun with it. So that's my impression of Academia School Simulator. I'm going to play it a little bit more just to see if there's anything I've missed. Maybe I'll have to make a grovelling retraction video later, but I kind of don't think I will. So if you found this video interesting, useful, you can do all the usual things down underneath it. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.